Hi everyone, welcome to an special episode of Inspiral Hacks. Today we have an special guest. His name is Roger Jackson. He's the founder of Shopper Experience and also a new platform called Sensecheck. Roger has an extensive experience in marketing, not only from being a founder, yet also from the corporate world. But before I tell more about Roger, how are you today? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Yes, I'm very good. Thank you. And looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. Indeed, this is an special occasion because having the opportunity to ask to someone of your experience about the key elements in marketing, it's something that actually we really need for our community of founders here in the Netherlands and in Europe. So, Roger, if I may ask you, how was the transition from discovering working for large corporates like yours, like the ones that were part of, to these new companies that you have been, well, the companies that you have been embodying for the last years?
It's a huge leap. You think you're doing sales and marketing when you work for big companies spending other people's money and you have all the power and authority of the brand name and the business behind you. You really only discover what selling is really about, and then you discover what marketing is really about. When you're on your own, it's your name, no one's heard of it, and you're spending your own money. I mean, it's a massive leap. But I would also say it's the point you discover how these things really work in real life. There's a lot of sort of smoke and mirrors in corporate life, and you get a lot of stuff just because it's always happened. But certainly, I've learned a huge amount. I mean, the speed I've learned since I worked for myself was faster than when I was working for big corporate. So I celebrate that. Of course, you can make mistakes along the way, but you certainly find out whether things work or not.
Yeah, correct. And if I may say, the corporates like Unilever in your past, but yet Shop Experience has also created already quite a long experience in the corporate world as with clients as well.
Well, Shopper Intelligence as a business services big blue chip companies. I mean, I built the business out of my own experience working for those companies to solve a problem and fulfill a need that was there that I saw. And turns out it was there. We've grown. We started sort of 15 years ago. We've grown every year. So that's been a fascinating journey. And it was tough in the early stages to get it across the line, get people to understand it, accept it. But I think we're a little bit more understood now and we're a bit better known.
Wonderful. And
But the
and
battle continues. It's a long journey. SenseCheck is a startup from scratch, completely new idea, and none of the experience to back it up, except SenseCheck came out of my experience of the struggles of building shopper intelligence. So one business came from the experience of the other.
and would you mention that that's in sense is a circle that is helping now with Sensecheck, especially as I tested for, I may say, for a few of my companies. Thank you for that. It has been an amazing experience. Would you
Good.
mention that indeed is one of the key elements that every founder that is working on a B2B
Well,
platform?
that's right. I mean, I'm mirroring my experience of building a B2B company over many years. And the problem you have is you're trapped in your own bubble. You're obsessed, passionate about your product. You think about it 24/7. But when it comes to communicating it through your marketing, that puts you in probably the worst position to get the messaging right because you're far too close to things to see them clearly. So, my idea is simple, like you need to get an objective external perspective. So sense check is a way of doing that in a way small businesses can afford. I mean, it's great to do market research. I've been in market research my whole career. Of course, I'm passionate about market research. But a lot of small businesses, a lot of startups, it's just hard to do it thoroughly, frequently, and it's expensive. And in B2B, it can be impossible because the people you want to talk to are your prospective clients. To get to talk to them just for market research is a bit of a luxury. So SenseCheck does something a bit different. We created a huge panel of marketing experts, very time-served people who've been there and got the T-shirt, and they're willing to give back by giving startups, small businesses, and marketing people nuggets of feedback. So you show them your marketing, and they give you helpful pointers as to maybe how it could be improved, or maybe spot things you hadn't spotted. So it's that external, unbiased viewpoint, and the slogan we use is it's feedback from outside of your bubble.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I would love to also bring into the attention of our audience or listeners. Considering your experience that you had from corporates in the past and what it's now Sensecheck is offering for startup owners, for founders, how much would you say is the difference in terms of cost? Because now, for example, Sensecheck is an automated solution that connects highly skilled professionals in the marketing sector with these founders. How much was back then the expense of such a solution?
Well, there was no such solution ever before. This is a sort of groundbreaking idea. But don't forget, when I was at Unilever, I had my design agency, my PR agency, and my advertising agency. I had dozens of people, because of my budgets, all around me kind of giving me input. Although I would say, with hindsight, everybody was trapped in the bubble. I think within 2 to 4 weeks, if you work with a business, you go into the bubble. So I think we all get trapped. I did point out in a blog that the good thing about advertising agencies is that every time we had a new ad, they would give us a new creative team. They would never use the same team twice for exactly that problem. So, but we were spending thousands and thousands and thousands on market research and millions on marketing. So I guess that we had a lot of resources, but in small business, you've got none of that. And the risks are that much higher. I mean, let's face it, we just don't have money to waste. We can't make mistakes. It could be mission critical to our business by getting our messaging, our marketing wrong. So the idea that we are asking professional people to give a few minutes of attention to your marketing, and you get a panel of 5 who look at your work, and they give you a couple of minutes. And I believe that that's the 80 for 20. That gut feel first couple of minutes you get looking at marketing is the most important, and they will give you some pieces of feedback. Let's face it, the customer you're talking to isn't going to spend 5 hours on your website. They're going to spend a couple of minutes. So if it doesn't work almost in a few seconds, but let's say a minute or two, it ain't going to work in real life. So they will do that for you. They will give you that couple of minutes. And that's why the cost comes down to a couple of $100. It's nuggets of wisdom, but it's the crucial bit to help you avoid those big mistakes. And a lot of people who get a report from Sensecheck are quite surprised about what they get. And it does make you stop and think, because these people are completely independent and they ask questions that you get that forehead slap moment. You go, why didn't I spot that? It's obvious now you've told me. And why couldn't I see it? And the answer is they can see it because they're not in your bubble.
Wonderful, perfect, indeed. I got if I may say, I got the first Sensecheck for my company, for my agency, about 2 years ago, I believe, a year and a half, and I just got another one as well, just a few weeks ago, for a different vertical that I was doing, and in both moments it was right on the spot, especially when it comes about the language that we want to bring, the value that we want to bring. So if I may ask you also, Roger, in that sense, one of the situations that I constantly encounter with founders in the last months is that everyone is now looking about this area of the high value tickets, how value offerings, how value products and services to sell online. How would you mention that has a difference between high value products and services with, let's say, more scalable software companies like Sensecheck, for example?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure I know what you're asking. Do you want to just
rephrase
that?
How would you see that the marketing differs from high value marketing offerings with, let's say, for example, more solutions that are more accessible, the solutions that are more, let's say, in a sense, quite cheaper for everyone?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, there's price, as in money, but the costs of buying something are not just the money. I mean, we often spent a lot of time wondering why people would choose not to buy Shopper Intelligence when actually it's for big companies, it's very affordable. And the reality is, it's not the cost of buying the data for shopper intelligence. It's actually the cost of onboarding it, using it. And doesn't matter what you spend on something, if it ends up being a bad purchase, you still look an idiot. So I think that small or big purchase, the crucial thing really is that the true cost of change and the risk of change, and how you reassure people that's going to be worthwhile. And there's emotional reassurance, like building trust, making sure that the customer feels that you've understood them thoroughly. And then, of course, expressing the value. I read a great book by Jonah Berger, who talked about you almost need a 4-to-1 cost benefit equation, because he made the point that the costs of change are right here, right now. They're known, they're in front of your eyes, whereas the benefits are in the future. And because people discount things that happen in the future and pay more attention to things that happen now, you need like a 4-to-1 benefit of the reward versus the costs to get somebody to move. I'm not sure that's different for a very expensive purchase or a very small purchase. Obviously, I think that probably the barriers just get higher, so you need to work harder, and your marketing is going to take longer. In shopper intelligence, we expect to have 5, 10, 15 contacts with a client before they get close to buying it. It's not going to happen the first time they pick up the phone. So I think in B2B, you have to be very aware that you've got a journey to take prospects through, and also they're not ready to buy at any one point. So people don't want to buy everything in their life, or sorry, change everything in their business every year. They may make 1 or 2 changes every year, 1 or 2 purchases, and that's enough. So you might have to be patient and wait several years before a client is even ready to buy your product. And that's whether it's expensive or cheap. Just because it's a good product, just because it solves a problem, just because they like it, doesn't mean they're going to buy straight away. So I think marketing is in B2B particularly is a bit of a patience game. I did a post about this recently, that how many people, I download something on the internet, I say I'm interested, I get a phone call from a rep, I say, look, I'm not quite ready. And that's the last I ever hear from them. It's because I say no right now, they just write me off the list and say, oh, this person isn't going to buy. And the chances are I could be buying in a couple of years' time. So I think recognizing that nurturing is a task of marketing is really important.
So right, and so right in the money, I would say in the message as well, in the message, because I was just considering this with this company called Mind Valley, where basically normally they have these people that they are in their community, in their ecosystem for over 2 to 4 years before they ever buy something. And they found that only because they were doing data measurements, where they understood that indeed, in reality, people are engaging with them because they just like to get so much content and answers from them. And sometimes something happens that sticks with them so good that then they buy some.
I think that there's human nature. I mean, if you've just discovered a product or a company, I mean, you don't know whether they're going to be there in 6 months' time. So you don't buy it straight away. You want to show to yourself it's stood the test of time. So if it's still there talking to a year later or 2 years later, that's very reassuring that their product is actually quite good. If they just, I mean, how many things just come and go? They appear in your inbox or on the internet, and that's it. You never hear any more about them. That's why we're all so skeptical.
Correct, correct. To understand how we connect with them. Roger, if I may ask as well, what would you consider that is the once we use the platform of Sensecheck, once we understand the high value that we got from 5 different actors, from 5 different highly skilled professionals in terms of marketing and many different areas, I may say. I got the last one. I got also about quite some very important tips about CRO, for example, and SEO. How would you mention that now that we have these 5 reviews or 5 protocols, 5 reports? What are the key elements that we should take now with these reports?
Every report is different. I mean, there's lots of nuggets of wisdom in there. I think in the end, you have to reach your own judgment about the priorities and what you need to do. And don't forget, they don't know your business as well as you do. So there's a balance here between the objective external view and your own knowledge of what you're doing. They're not trying to solve all your problems or tell you your strategy. They are just a sounding board. One of the things we hope is that people will go back to the panel on a regular basis. They'll go early in the process. Here's some our early thinking. They can show some draft marketing. Here's a prototype of something. Here's a draft of our web page. And then as they go forward, they can keep checking, because actually the job's never done. It's a constant evolution. What I hope is that Sensecheck will be just your partner. It's almost like a sort of a bunch of extra helpers, but behind your shoulder, you can turn around and go, "Hey guys, what do you think about this?" But rather than just asking around the office or asking your friends in the pub, you're asking people who have genuine knowledge. So I think it could be quite habitual. It could be, if you're spending several $1,000s a year on marketing, let's say you're a small business, the rule of thumb is you should spend 10 to 15% of your budget on some form of research anyway. And that's what Unilever and Procter & Gamble do. They view it as being necessary to get their marketing right. So I'd have thought, checking things on a regular basis would make sense. But in terms of what you actually do, it's hard for me to say. Sometimes the reports are very clear. They say you must do this because what you've got is no good. Sometimes they say what you've got is pretty good. I just suggest a couple of minor tweaks. So, honestly, the reports, certainly I've seen reports that are very glowing. They say this is great marketing, crack on, do it. And after all, we're not assuming that your marketing has problems, right? This is a validation step. It could be perfectly fine. And maybe you just get a couple of tweaks. But I would say that the majority there are quite big things to think about, because I would say, and I'm talking for myself here, when we're in our bubble, thinking about our own product, we don't do marketing very well. We get too wrapped up in what we think about our product and forget the problems our customers actually sitting there thinking about. And connecting our product to their problems is marketing, right? So we know all about our product. That's taken as read. But if you just put in your marketing, blah, 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 blah about your product, you're going to get nowhere. You have to hook into what your customer thinks about and cares about. And that's where the outside point of view really comes in, because I would say we forget that all the time. It's just human nature. It just comes from our own emotions. We're passionate about what we do. I can tell you about shopper intelligence for the next 7 hours, probably without even taking breath. I love it so much. My data is so fantastic, but I won't sell a single part of that data unless I talk about why our clients would use it, what it would do for them, how their business will get better as a result. Because that's what they care about. They don't care about me at all. I'm a nice chap, but honestly, they don't care about me. They've got their own problems. So you have to talk about their problems. Otherwise, why would they pay you any attention? That is so easy to get wrong. And I know that. I really, really know that theoretically. But I make that mistake myself almost every day.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It resonates in many levels. Thank you very much, Roger. Indeed, and we were just talking with a publishing company as well, and they were mentioning about like the fact of that everyone is writing books, and if you see in the first page, me, I, you know that they are not focusing on the value that they're providing, but just telling their own story.
It's a fascinating human study. I'm planning a book myself about the psychology of this problem. And it does boil actually down to our own brain behavior, the way our brain is programmed by evolution. We are not programmed to worry about everything that's going on. We are programmed to think about the things we have told our brain we care about, which is why when we look at our own product, we love it so much, because our brain has already been taught to focus and enjoy our product. So as human beings, we're not actually very good at leaping into other people's worlds. It's just not a skill that evolution has given us. And I think even if you're a very experienced businessman or marketing person, you have to understand your brain isn't always your best friend in doing things. It's quite biased. It's quite blinkered. There's lots of great books about brains and psychology, but we have to recognize we aren't a computer. We are actually a human being. Yeah. And that's another reason why asking other people is so important. By the way, I would say that often we hate getting feedback. One of the problems with our brain is we get very emotionally attached to things. And if people say, hey, I don't like your idea, we get quite upset. There's no reason to be upset. It's important for our business to find out how we can get better. But again, it's a human thing. Nobody likes being criticized. I would say that a Sensecheck review is actually incredibly friendly and helpful. No one is actually trying to criticize you. They're just saying, here are some suggestions. But it can make people feel quite uncomfortable. And you just have to recognize we're not machines. We are humans, and humans are emotional creatures.
Correct. Correct. Wonderful, wonderful, Roger. I may say that indeed, and my last test was especially to understand as well, remind myself about the importance of this different perspective before we launch something. And being that said, with this episode, I will highly encourage all the people that are in our network, that they are business coaches working with, looking for clients and working with clients and corporates all around Europe, to use Sensecheck to understand the possibilities, not only for their own business, but their own clients, the companies that that they are working on a B2B level, on how they can understand the importance of feedback. You see, as you mentioned, we tend to avoid criticism in the sense of, because of emotional intelligence, the lack of emotional
But
intelligence.
if you ask two people for feedback, just around your own office or whatever, and one of them says it's great and the other one says it's terrible, I guarantee you will believe the one that says it's great and you will disagree with the person who says it's terrible. This is your natural bias. But of course, the most important one to listen to is the one that says the idea is wrong, because they're the ones that will challenge your point of view. And it's a discipline you have to try to make sure you don't just always listen to the people who say nice things. And if it's your money at stake, if it's your business and it's your future, and let's face it, when you start a business, you tend to put everything into it. It's too risky for you just to take the people who say nice things. And look, when I launched Sensecheck, I would say that 9 out of 10 people I spoke to said really nice things about it. The people who gave me criticisms or challenges are the ones that mattered most, because they're the ones that threw up the problems I had to fix. And it's lovely to bath in the glowing feedback of people say, "Oh, you're such a genius. Roger, you've come up with a wonderful idea. Clap, clap." And you go, "Oh, I am a genius. I feel so good now." And actually, if you want to make money, it's no point just thinking about that. You've got to think about what are the things that are going to stop people using it? What are the problems and barriers? Because that's the difference between success and failure.
Correct. Correct. What is really the problem that we are solving? Wonderful.
Well, and even if you can talk about solving the problem, why would anybody believe you? I mean,
Yeah.
there's trust. I mean, it's like, why would people trust you to do the thing you say you're going to do? They don't know you. And particularly I mean, the internet, one of the big problems on the web is there's so much stuff on the web. How can we trust any of it? So you have to really work hard in any marketing to create trust. And it doesn't happen quickly, as we said before. It's a long-term process to build trust.
Correct. Correct. Roger, that has been amazing. Thank you very much. And if I may ask you one question, one of the key questions that normally we like to ask and in Inspire Hacks, and is, Roger, if you had the possibility to put in the sense of marketing, if you could put a billboard on the top of the moon for everyone to see, what will be the message that you will leave to everyone?
You mean for sense check?
Yeah,
Or
in
just
general.
just humanity in
Yeah.
general? Well, sense check is fairly easy. It's like, why risk marketing mistakes when you can get feedback to avoid them? I mean, it's a fairly simple message.
Good one.
But for humanity is slightly more difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if I could get people, and it's really hard to think about the long term, not the short term, in everything they do, humanity be a very different place. I think we have this natural bias to only think about the immediate, our needs, our issues, our problems right now. If we could all take a long-term time frame on our lives, our work, our families, the environment, everything we do, we would just behave better in the short term. I don't know how to fix that, but my message would always be think long term, think long term, because long term is when everything pays out. And, judge your life in the long term. Don't judge it by what happens tomorrow. I'm not saying don't enjoy and get the most out of today, but make decisions today based on where you want to be in a few years' time, not where you want to be tomorrow.
Excellent. Excellent. long-term thinking. Wonderful, Roger. Thank you very much. Roger, here, everyone, the founder of Serial Entrepreneur. Roger, if they would love to get in touch with you to maybe get some feedback on their companies, or even actually some sort, maybe a collaboration. Now we have all these wonderful companies coming also into play in Europe with AI and all the different changes into the market sector. How could they contact you best?
Well, I'm open to be contacted on LinkedIn. Easy to find on LinkedIn. If you look up Roger Jackson, Shopper Intelligence, or Sensecheck, you'll find me. Sensecheck.com is the website, so it's easy to find. We have a chat bot. You can just say hello via the chat bot. We have emails, all sorts of things. So please feel free to do that. And by the way, I should say the first test everybody gets on Sensecheck is free of charge. Everyone gets to try it without paying any money. So you really don't have any risk of just giving this thing a go.
There you have it. Thank you very much, Roger. And to everyone, you cannot miss this opportunity. We are going to make sure actually to put the link of sensecheck.com on all our communications, and we will add a description. And if you have something that you want to test right away before to launch, that you want to launch to the market, please take a second to check Sensecheck first to understand what could you improve. Now, Roger, I wish you a wonderful time, a wonderful day. Thank you very much, sir, for being here.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you.